Diana. She's a big, big star. She's, oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We didn't know anything. So the next thing we know, we were writing songs we came in with one song, he liked it. He said, but that's not the title of the picture, so I want you to write another song for this situation here. And so we wrote another little song. We wound up writing 4 songs for the Parent Trap. Became a big, big hit. And we had our first movie song that became like a top 10, number 2 or something, song in the country, in the world actually, was Let's Get Together. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Little Haley Mills sang it. And she was adorable. So, and we started doing a lot of songs for Walt Disney's television shows and things like that. And every time he gave us an assignment, we came through, and he liked what we did. And so one day, he just had accepted one of our songs, I think for a Zorro episode or something. And he said, you know what a nanny is? We said, yeah, it's a goat. We thought he was going to do a picture about a nanny goat that sang or something. We didn't know. No, he said, no, an English nursemaid. Oh, English, yeah, sure, English nursemaid, a nanny, that's right. He says, well, I have a book. I want you to read this and tell me what you think. He did not say, I have this book, I want you to write me a title song for it. I have a situation I want you to write for this character to sing. He just said, read the book and tell me what you think. The rest of it's history.
Absolutely.
The name of the book was Mary Poppins and the Trappers.
Well, I do want to ask you just quickly about those early dealings with Walt Disney. What were your first impressions of him, just as a man, as far as the way he ran his studio, and what that whole operation was like in those days when he was still in control? And I'm talking the physical layout of the place, the atmosphere, the way the people felt working for him, just what he was like.
If you can picture walking into a beautiful, clean college campus with manicured lawns, beautiful, beautiful greenery everywhere, beautiful, clean, burnished buildings, and signposts that say Dopey Drive, Mickey Drive, ink and paint department, so it's all on the posters. A wonderland. You walked into a special world. From the minute you walked through the gate, it's like going to Disneyland. It's another world. Well, that's the way it was for us. From the grime and strange and kind of ugly world of trying to get songs published by little hole-in-the-wall publishers and getting double-crossed and everything, we're walking into a magic place. And to meet the man, he was a sweet, nice, very, very exciting person to be around. He could tell a story and be every one of the characters. I mean, his face would just turn into these people. And he'd change his voice, and he just electrified the people who worked for him. And everybody adored him. Everybody. He was just great. And if they didn't adore him, they respected him to a tremendous extent. The place was like a little private world. It was not a big studio. It was a little boutique studio. But everyone was treated with a great deal of respect. Everyone was on first name basis. You never said Mr. to him. Everybody was Hank and Bill and Wooly and all the names of the guys. But it never was formal.
And he was Walt.
And he was Walt. He didn't want anybody to call him anything but Walt. He didn't like Mr. Disney, and he disliked it intensely. And that was kind of a pattern. He was a very inspiring man. So many times people ask me the same question. He was a hands-on producer. He knew everything that was going on in his projects. He knew about what was going into his parks. He knew what the color of the lipstick was going to be on the lead singer in the so-and-such. He knew everything. And if he didn't like something, he'd let you know it. But he had people that he respected, and he used to know how to team people together. People you'd never expect would be teamed together, and that's the way he worked.
And when he did like something, he was never...
He never, exuberant about it. He'd always, behind your back he would be, but to your face he'd say, that'll work. That's about all you got out of him. There he is. He's my pal.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That's the partner's statue. I'll tell you a story about that statue. But basically, Walt was a very human being, a very nice man. He was very fair, but he knew what he wanted, and he'd let you know. And if he didn't like something, he didn't jump at you. He just said, that's not my song. What I want is, and then he'd tell you what he wanted. And he had his way of telling you. He wasn't technical. He would just give you a kind of a a visceral impact vocally, and you knew what he wanted.
And he seems to have been very fond of you and your brother. How did you come to be the Boys?
Oh, how the Boys. Well, I know right after we started writing there, we got a feeling he really liked us because we sort of sensed what he wanted. I think we were on the same page. And so we never really got any rejections. Very, very rarely. I think we wrote, God knows, close to 200 songs for him. I mean, a lot of music. Constantly writing for the 8 years that we were under contract. And then we've been connected to the studio ever since, but we were fully, totally Disney for 8 years, 10 years really. But I think it was through our music, he felt that we understood how he was thinking. Because he didn't have to tell us much till we knew what we wanted. We knew what he wanted. And at a certain point in time, he called us Bob and Dick, and then he referred to us as the Boys. The Boys would come up with this thing. And everybody started calling us the Boys. Not the Sherman Boys, or Bob and Dick Sherman, or just the Boys. And, well, actually, he's responsible for us getting our formal names, Richard M. Sherman and Robert Beecher. He said, doesn't have any dignity. You should have Richard, what's your middle name? M. Okay, Richard M. Sherman, Robert Beecher. So that's what became our logos. Everybody called us Bob and Dick, but that was on the credits and everything. You'd always say, yeah, that gives you a little dignity. And I said, why don't you call yourself Walter E. Disney? I never said that.
Yeah.
I thought it. Because there was only one Walt Disney.
Yes, yes. Before I ask you about some of the most celebrated work that you did there and subsequently, I want to ask you about the sort of how you and your brother went about doing that work. And so just sort of how the collaboration itself operated. So a few questions that occurred to me. For you guys, what generally came first? Was it the music or the lyrics? It seems
Neither. The idea. The reason for doing it. Anybody and his Uncle Harry can write a song. There's no big trick in that. And anybody can write a tune. And everybody can rhyme moon and June and spoon and croon. I mean, that's not it. It's the idea behind the song. Why write the song? What's the motivation? What is it going to accomplish? That's what we first came up with. It was always that, before anything. And then what happened, particularly when we started not writing pop songs, but writing story songs, book songs, was the whole atmosphere of the story. If it took place in the Dakota Territory in 1885, that's a different kind of a song than something that took place in the jazz era in 1925. I mean, it's a whole different kind of a sound. Or the Depression in England in 1937. Everybody knows that there's a different kind of music that goes with everything. If it takes place in Ireland, that's a flavor too. And if it takes place in France, that's another flavor. Germany's got a flavor. So we always have all these little things, little buzzers going off in our heads, depending on the story. Mary Poppins we decided to make it turn of the century, to give it 1910 for one reason. 1934 England was Depression England. That's when it was written. And who the hell in America is going to believe that you're going to have a cook and a nanny and an odd job man in a depression time, and he's a low man on the totem pole in a bank? He's not going to have that kind of house. Nobody would believe it. So we said, let's turn it back to the turn of the century, where you could believe a nanny come flying in out of the air, and we'd have the color of English music hall music. Because in the 30s, English music was actually imitation American music. They were trying to write American pop music then. But then it was purely English. It was a very special kind of music. And it had a very vanilla quality to it, and rhythms and wonderful style that only the Brits had. And that we said, let's do it that way. And you have to know a lot about music to do that. I'm not saying we didn't just research that, we just knew that. Because I grew up with music, and my whole life was listening to records and listening to the great artists of the past, and a lot of it had to do with that. So basically, everything that you write, whatever you do, it's because of all the things in your life. It's not just that moment. It's all that stuff all compiled into what you're going to do. Basically, I've gotten off the subject, haven't I? I'm sorry.
No, I think it's
No, you said
great.
what makes a song. Yeah, the reason. And that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of why we write. And then we sit there and mull it out, like I'm doing with you right now. What happens is Bob and I both would think about things, we both agree, this is what we're gonna do. And now one of us will come up with a phrase that gives us a title or a feel or a hook. And with that, we'd say, okay. And I would automatically jump to the piano and start playing a feeling. And he would say, no, I think it has to be a little more. And so I'd change the music. And then I'd say, how about a line like this? And so we worked back and forth. Although I was heavy in the music, he was heavier in the lyrics. We both worked together. And a lot of the lyrics are mine, and a lot of the ideas and the tunes and everything are Bob. But basically, that's the way we did. So we never said, I do the music, he does the lyrics. It wasn't like that. Because the main thing was the idea. And that's what we both dug for. So that third part of the song.
And
I talk too fast, don't I?
no, I think this has been terrific. I love hearing
So
you.
we have audio, and video.
Oh, yes, because you're not taking notes, that's right.
No, this is terrific. And my next question is also probably the answer has been implied by what you've said already, but just for the heck of it, if you had to say on average, you mentioned you did 200 some odd songs during the time you were at Disney, for instance.
That was just that 8 years.
Those 8 years. So how long would it take you to do your average song?
That's a good question, and I'll give you an answer we thought of years ago.
Okay.
It took our entire lives plus the time it took to write the song. Because I just implied the fact that it's everything that you know. The fact that I love Gilbert and Sullivan. The fact that I love Rodgers and Hammerstein. The fact that I love the Gershwin brothers. The fact that I love Irving Berlin. All those great writers. And Al Sherman, who taught us how to write simple, singable, sincere pop tunes. He taught us that. Nobody else. And all those ingredients go into writing what we do. And a lot of the reason why our stuff is catchy is because of the Al Sherman influence. Because he wrote pop tunes that got right to the point. They grabbed you in 8 bars. And that's what was part of our training. If not training, I mean, we weren't set to a school and learn how to do it. It was sort of hammered into us over the years. You just felt that.
When you were working on songs, would you and your brother, would that bring out a different side of your relationship than at other times? Sometimes pressure to do things will make people work better together. Sometimes it'll make get along better. Sometimes it'll make them get along worse. Would it help or hurt when you were working together?
We had a very strong work ethic, and that was you shut the doors and you're into the problems, and all we did is think about what we're going to write and why we're going to write it and the best possible thing we could do, and that was the only thing we thought about. If the whole world is exploding outside of us, we closed the door. It wasn't around our world. So if we were writing a fantasy that takes place in some other place, we're there. We're with Winnie the Pooh in the 100-Acre Wood. We're not anywhere else, no matter what's happening outside. And I think we open the door out of the room, and then all of a sudden the world hits you. But Bob and I really kind of never discussed this, really, but we just knew work is very important. We have to close the door and work. And that was it. We had a lot of things. We were different people. We went our different ways. But when it came to work, we'd always work together.
You mentioned the first time you heard about Mary Poppins. Can you explain the book that you were handed and the product that we now see on the screen are very different? What were the different ways that you not only wrote all these songs? I've seen a number 32 were written, 14 were used, I think, which is just for one project. It's amazing. But so not only writing the songs, but shaping the story. Can you talk about what you did to change it from what it was with Travers?
Okay, you used the expression shaping the story. Mrs. Travers wrote a wonderful collection of incidents. There was no story, no storyline. Nothing happens. She comes in and takes the children on wonderful adventures. They're beautiful. She's a special lady. She's great. Nothing. And book after book.